When someone doesn't like you, the first thing you need to do is stop trying to win them over. Their opinion is not your assignment. You're not here to audition for a role in their approval. You're here to stand in your truth and communicate like someone who knows their worth. That means you don't shrink, you don't over-explain, and you don't let their energy dictate yours. You speak with clarity, not desperation. You stay calm, but you stay firm. The goal is not to change their mind, it's to control your side of the conversation. Because the moment you start chasing their acceptance, you've already handed over your power. And once you give away your power, they'll use it to define you. Instead, keep your tone steady, your words simple, and your boundaries obvious. You're not looking for friendship, you're delivering your message without losing yourself in the process. That's the difference between being respected and being walked over. The moment you walk into a conversation with someone who doesn't like you, the biggest trap you can fall into is trying to win them over. That's where most people lose themselves. They start bending, twisting, and shaping their words to fit into someone else's expectations. They trade authenticity for approval, and in the process they hand over their own self-respect. The truth is, their opinion of you is none of your business. It doesn't pay your bills, it doesn't define your future, it doesn't decide your worth. The second you start chasing it, you make it bigger than it actually is. When you detach from their approval, you take away their leverage. They can't dangle their acceptance in front of you like a carrot if you're not hungry for it. That changes the entire dynamic. You walk in as an equal, not a contestant. You're not there to convince them you're likable, you're there to communicate what needs to be said. There's a difference between speaking to be heard and speaking to be liked. One is about power, the other is about pleasing. You already know which one gets results. This is where most people misunderstand strength. They think strength is being aggressive, loud, or intimidating. It's not. Real strength is being able to speak with calm conviction while holding zero attachment to whether the other person claps for you or not. You're rooted in who you are. You're steady, and that steadiness unnerves people who rely on conflict to control the room. When you're not seeking approval, you stop over-explaining yourself. You stop adding unnecessary justifications to your sentences. You start saying only what's needed, and you let the silence do the rest. Silence is powerful. People who dislike you often want you to overtalk so they can twist your words. Don't give them that opening. Detaching doesn't mean you're cold or dismissive. It means you're clear about the fact that your self-worth is not up for debate. You're not rude, but you're also not performing. You're direct, respectful, and controlled. You know that their opinion is filtered through their own insecurities, biases, and misunderstandings, and that's not yours to fix. Here's the hard truth. Some people will dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. They might be jealous, they might be threatened, they might simply not vibe with your personality, and that's okay. You're not made for everyone. You're made for the people who align with your values, your energy, and your purpose. So why waste your breath trying to win over someone who's already decided not to see you clearly? The moment you stop chasing their approval, your conversations become lighter. You're no longer trying to play chess with their feelings, anticipating every move they might make. You're focused on the message, not the emotion. You say what needs to be said. You keep your tone neutral. You let go of the need to walk away liked, and instead aim to walk away heard. It's about emotional detachment without emotional neglect. You're still engaged in the conversation, you still listen, but you filter everything through your own sense of self, not through their validation. And when you operate from that space, you take away their ability to pull you off balance. People who dislike you often want a reaction. They want to see if they can make you defensive, insecure, or angry. When you detach from needing their approval, you don't give them that satisfaction. You're not cold, you're just unmoved by the bait. That's frustrating for them, but freeing for you. Approval is addictive. The more you chase it, the less you trust yourself. But when you step back and remind yourself that you don't need it to function, you begin to trust your own voice again. You start communicating from a place of strength instead of a place of fear. And that's when people, whether they like you or not, begin to respect you. Respect always outweighs approval in the long run. Approval is fickle. It changes with moods, misunderstandings, and gossip. Respect comes from consistency, from showing up the same way every time, no matter how the other person feels about you. When you show that you're not swayed by every opinion in the room, you build a reputation for being steady, reliable, and unshakable. So the next time you find yourself talking to someone who doesn't like you, remember this: you're not there to audition for their acceptance. You're not selling yourself. You're not proving your worth. You're simply delivering your message. Whether they clap, criticize, or ignore it, you walk away knowing you didn't give away your power for the cheap price of temporary approval. That's how you win without even trying. When you're talking to someone who doesn't like you, your calm is your weapon, not aggression, not volume, not clever comebacks. calm. The person across from you might be hoping for a spark, something they can grab onto to twist the narrative. If they can get you flustered, defensive, or loud, they win because the focus shifts from the issue to your reaction. That's why staying calm and measured isn't just about looking mature, it's about controlling the frame of the conversation so they can't pull you into a game you didn't sign up to play. Your tone sets the pace. You might not realize it, but the way you breathe, the way you hold your body, the way your eyes meet theirs, all of it sends signals. If your voice shakes, they smell weakness. If your body tenses, they sense you're rattled. But when you speak in a steady level voice, it communicates something they can't argue with: control. And control is power. You're showing that their dislike doesn't shake you, and that alone is enough to shift the balance in your favor. Calm isn't passive. Calm is active. It's a choice to regulate your emotions in real time, even when you feel provoked. That means slowing down your breathing when your chest tightens. It means pausing before you respond instead of firing back instantly. It means keeping your words sharp and simple instead of letting them spill out in a rush. The more intentional you are, the less room there is for the other person to manipulate your reactions. People who dislike you might use tone as a weapon. They might talk over you, raise their voice, or inject sarcasm into every sentence. If you match their energy, you've already stepped into their arena, and in their arena they know all the tricks. Instead, keep your delivery even. If they're loud, you stay steady. If they're sarcastic, you stay factual. If they're dismissive, you stay on point. The contrast exposes them without you even having to call it out. There's a reason calm unnerves people who thrive on conflict. It shows them they can't control you. Think about it. Someone pushes a button expecting an explosion, and nothing happens. That's power. You've turned their weapon into a useless gesture. And over time, that consistent control makes it harder for them to get the reaction they want, which means they lose influence over you. But staying calm doesn't mean bottling everything up. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about channeling it. You can be assertive without being aggressive. You can be clear without being confrontational. Calm communication means you choose the delivery that best serves your point, not the one that serves your ego in the moment. And yes, that takes discipline, especially when the person in front of you is throwing jabs, subtle or not. The secret is to detach from the outcome. When you're not obsessed with making them like you or agree with you, you stop feeling the urgency to win in the moment. That urgency is what makes people slip, raise their voice, or over-explain. Without it, you can listen fully, think clearly, and speak intentionally. That's where the measured part comes in. Not just calm in tone, but deliberate in word choice. Think of every word you say as a chess move. You're not just reacting, you're choosing with precision. You're asking yourself, does this push the conversation forward or give them ammunition? Does this keep me on my ground or pull me into theirs? Measured communication means you're not handing over weapons for them to use against you later. And here's the thing, they will notice. Even if they never admit it, they will register that you don't get shaken, that you don't rush, that you don't take the bait. It changes the way they approach you next time. Over time, they learn you're not someone they can fluster into mistakes. That's the beginning of respect, even from someone who doesn't like you. Because when the storm is raging and you're the only one not getting blown off course, people see that. They might still not like you, but they will remember how you carried yourself, and your reputation for composure will follow you far beyond that single conversation. It will carry into your work, your relationships, and your influence. That's the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. So when the heat rises, stay anchored. When the jabs come, keep your tone steady. When the temptation to snap back hits, pause and choose better. You're not just holding your calm for this moment, you're building a reputation as someone who can handle pressure without cracking. That's rare, and rare gets respected, even by people who wish it didn't. When you're dealing with someone who doesn't like you, one of the smartest moves you can make is to keep what you say short and clear. The more you talk, the more you give them to work with. Every extra sentence is another opportunity for them to twist your words, take something out of context, or use it against you later. People who have an issue with you aren't always listening to understand, they're often listening to catch you. That's why you strip away the fluff, cut the filler, and make your point in a way that's simple enough to leave no cracks for misinterpretation. Short doesn't mean cold, it means precise. It means you've taken the time to think about exactly what you want to say and nothing more. You deliver it with confidence, then stop talking. Silence after clarity is powerful because it puts the weight of the conversation back on them. They have to respond to your point instead of dragging you into a spiral of side arguments and irrelevant details. The trap most people fall into is over-explaining. They feel like they have to justify themselves in order to be understood, and that's where they lose control of the conversation. They start adding background, clarifications, and little disclaimers that dilute the strength of their original point. Suddenly, the other person isn't even addressing the main message, they're nitpicking one of those side details. That's why you keep it clean. No unnecessary layers, no verbal padding. Being short and clear is also about structure. You make one point at a time, You don't stack 5 different issues into one statement because then you've handed them 5 different escape routes. You keep your sentences tight, your examples limited, and your language direct. That doesn't just help you, it makes it harder for them to dodge accountability, and when you are clear, you're not just stating what you think, you're making it unmistakable. Ambiguity is the enemy here. If you leave your meaning open to interpretation, they'll interpret it in the way that benefits them most, so you lock it down. You use words that can't be twisted into something else. You make your tone match your meaning so there's no doubt about what you're saying. This takes discipline because in tense situations, emotions want to drive the bus. You feel the urge to spill everything you've been holding in, to get it all off your chest at once. But when you do that, you're not just venting, you're handing over control. The other person can cherry pick what to respond to, ignore the rest, and paint the whole thing as messy or dramatic. When you keep it short and clear, you force the conversation to stay on the rails. It's not about being robotic, it's about being intentional. You can still show humanity, still speak with empathy, still be warm if the situation calls for it, but warmth doesn't require rambling, empathy doesn't require 10 backstory paragraphs. Even if you want to express understanding, you can do it in a sentence, not a speech. The tighter your message, the harder it is to derail. Another advantage of this approach is that it makes you harder to read. People who dislike you might be looking for emotional tells, signs that they're getting to you. If you keep things short and clear, you're not giving them those tells. You're revealing just enough to communicate, nothing more. That balance keeps them guessing while keeping you in control. And here's the real beauty of it. The more you practice this, the more you realize how much excess we usually put into conversations. You start to see how often people trap themselves with their own words, how they wander into arguments they didn't need to have simply because they couldn't stop talking. Clarity saves you from that. Brevity shields you from that. In the end, short and clear communication is about valuing your words enough not to waste them. It's about understanding that in high-stakes conversations, less is often more. The less you say, the less they can use against you. The clearer you are, the harder it is for them to twist the truth. And when you walk away, you do so knowing you didn't hand them a single thing they could weaponize. That's how you protect yourself without raising your voice, without getting defensive, and without letting them pull you into their chaos. You spoke your truth, you made it undeniable, and you left the rest in silence. Because silence, when paired with clarity, says more than words ever could. Holding your boundaries with someone who doesn't like you is not about being combative, it's about protecting your self-respect. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what you will and will not tolerate, and when you're dealing with a person who already has a negative opinion of you, those lines matter more than ever, because if you don't set them, they will. They'll push, they'll test, and they'll see just how far they can go before you push back, and if you never push back, they'll take more than they ever should have had. Boundaries are not walls meant to block out communication, they're guardrails that keep the interaction from running off the road. They tell the other person, this is the lane we're staying in. The problem is, people who don't like you are often tempted to cross those lanes just to see what you'll do about it. That's why you can't afford to be vague. If you're soft about your limits, they'll treat those limits like suggestions, and suggestions get ignored. The key is to make your boundaries known through both words and behavior. You don't have to announce them like a courtroom verdict, but they should be clear enough that no one can claim they didn't know. If they start raising their voice at you, you calmly say, I'll continue this conversation when we can keep it respectful. If they cut you off every time you talk, you say, I'm going to finish my point, then I'll listen to yours, and then you follow through. That follow through is where most people fall short. They state a boundary but don't enforce it, and the moment you fail to enforce it, it stops being a boundary, it's just a wish. Enforcing boundaries doesn't mean exploding or threatening, it means calmly stepping back, redirecting or ending the interaction when the line is crossed. You don't need to convince them your boundary is valid. You don't need their agreement. Boundaries are for you, not them. They're not up for debate because they're based on what you know you need to stay in control of yourself. When you hold firm, something interesting happens. People start to realize they can't play the same games with you. They might still try, but over time they learn you're consistent. You won't get drawn into shouting matches. You won't let them bait you into saying things you regret. You won't sit there while they throw cheap shots. You'll address it once, and if it continues, you'll disengage. That's not weakness, that's discipline. Some people will accuse you of being difficult or cold when you hold boundaries. Let them. That's just a sign that the old ways of controlling you aren't working anymore. People who are used to crossing lines will always resist when those lines are suddenly enforced. But their discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong, it means you're finally protecting yourself. Boundaries also send a silent message, I respect myself. And here's the thing, when you respect yourself, even people who don't like you have to adjust how they deal with you. They may never become your fan, but they'll learn they can't walk over you without consequence. And that shifts the power balance. The mistake people make is thinking boundaries will instantly fix the relationship. They might not, the person still might not like you, but boundaries aren't about making them like you. They're about making sure you can walk away from every interaction with your dignity intact. That's the real win. There's a calm confidence in knowing you can hold your ground without needing to raise your voice. You're not in a battle to prove who's stronger. You're simply stating where you stand and refusing to move from it. And when you live like that consistently, the people around you, friends, enemies, and everyone in between start to see that your respect is non-negotiable. Boundaries are not a one-time announcement. They're a lifestyle. They require consistency every single time someone tests them. And yes, it's tiring, but the alternative is worse, living at the mercy of other people's moods, opinions, and behavior. When you hold the line, you control the tone and the terms of your interactions, and that's how you keep your power, no matter who's on the other side of the conversation. When you're talking to someone who doesn't like you, the goal is not to turn them into your friend. The goal is to get the job done. Too many people walk into these situations thinking, if I handle this just right, maybe they'll finally see I'm a good person. That's a trap. The need to be liked will make you compromise, over-explain, or soften your stance until the message loses its power. This isn't about friendship. It's about clarity, completion, and walking away with your integrity intact. When you make the relationship the priority, you start chasing approval instead of solving the problem. You end up adjusting your words and your tone to try to change their feelings, but you have no control over how they feel. Their opinion might be based on things you can't change: your personality, your decisions, your values. If you keep aiming for connection with someone who's committed to misunderstanding you, you're setting yourself up to fail before you even speak. Instead, lock your focus on the objective. Why are you having this conversation? What outcome do you actually need? Maybe it's to deliver information. Maybe it's to set a boundary. Maybe it's to clarify a misunderstanding. Whatever it is, make that the only target. If they still walk away disliking you, so be it. You're not there to win a popularity contest. You're there to make sure the message lands. When you shift your focus this way, your whole approach changes. You're no longer weighing every sentence against how it will make them feel about you. You're weighing it against whether it moves the conversation toward the finish line. That mindset makes you more efficient, more confident, and less reactive. You're not trying to massage your message. You're delivering it with purpose. This doesn't mean you should be cold or hostile. Professional, respectful, and even polite communication still matters. But those are tactics, not goals. The goal stays the same. Complete the conversation in a way that protects your position and respects your own standards. Whether they leave smiling or scowling is irrelevant. People who don't like you may try to pull the conversation off track, bait you into defending yourself, or push your buttons until you react. If you fall for that, you lose control of the exchange and never reach the real objective. When you keep your eye on the goal, you notice those traps faster and sidestep them. You don't have to respond to every jab or every sideways comment. They're distractions, not progress. You also save yourself a lot of emotional exhaustion when you stop trying to fix how they feel about you. That's a game with no finish line. Even if you manage to change their opinion temporarily, it can swing right back with the next disagreement. But if you focus on what you can control, your words, your delivery, your boundaries, you win every time because you leave knowing you didn't betray yourself to earn their acceptance. In fact, when you prioritize the objective over the relationship, you often gain respect without even aiming for it. People notice when you're consistent, steady, and unwilling to be derailed. They might never say it, but deep down they register that you're not easily manipulated. And respect built on consistency is worth far more than approval built on people-pleasing. It's important to remember that not everyone is meant to like you, and that's okay. You're not made to be everyone's favorite. You're made to stand firm in your values, deliver what's necessary, and keep your dignity no matter the circumstances. That's a higher standard than being liked, and it's one that will serve you for the rest of your life. So when you're face to face with someone who doesn't like you, don't waste your breath on winning them over. Keep your eye on the target. Speak to the point. Stay in control of your tone. Shut down distractions without taking the bait. And when it's over, walk away knowing you achieved what you came for. That's how you leave the conversation with your power intact, your respect unshaken, and your purpose fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, the goal was never to be liked. The goal was to be effective. At the end of the day, talking to someone who doesn't like you is never about proving your worth to them. It's about proving your commitment to yourself. You can't control how they see you, but you can control how you carry yourself. You can stay detached from their approval. Keep your emotions steady. Speak with clarity. Hold your boundaries like they matter, and keep your eyes locked on the real goal. You walk into the conversation knowing who you are, and you walk out the same way, unshaken, unmoved, and unapologetic. Because the win isn't in changing their mind. The win is in keeping your dignity, while still saying what needs to be said. That's how you keep your power in every room, no matter who's sitting across from you.